I personally feel with 8 billion people on the planet, finding the one is very difficult because it's always like a hit or a miss.
We're going to change in a couple of years, I hope. We're going to grow as people. So it would be daunting to put one person in one box for a long time.
I think awareness is the curse. If you guys remember when back in school or the first year of college, we didn't have too many terms for somebody you like. You saw somebody and like, I love you. I am going to marry you.
Everybody wants you to get married, and then at one point it feels like, do they really want me to get married or do they want me to be happy? Like what is happening?
On days you'll feel like I am so glad I am, by myself, I can do what I want. And there are days when you feel that, solitude is great, but loneliness isn't.
I'm not looking for much. I want to spend some time with myself. I haven't been single in a very long time.
I recently got into a relationship, so it's been like 4 months and it's going well.
I've been a serial dater of various different kinds, matrimonial dates, dating apps. Like I've tried everything.
I've met a couple of interesting people, but one of the biggest challenges has been the labeling. You have to label the relationship something as soon as you start seeing somebody.
I am done with being solo. Cannot. Please don't trigger me anymore. I would love to be, as I put it, in a stable, committed, institutional relationship.
Hello.
Hello. How are you doing, Dhriti?
Good. I'm in the middle of green, so I'm in a good space.
Do you want to actually show the green?
Yeah. Sure.
So fun.
Viewing.
Please sitting in Coorg.
Yeah. I'm at my grandmother's place.
And I have a plastic plant to keep me company.
The dog.
Okay. So, before we actually introduce the episode, there was a journal entry that I made after a very specific incident, and I want to read out that particular journal entry. I don't mind it being public. I think that will set the context for what we're going to talk about. So here goes. I've been wanting to celebrate something big for years now. My wedding, the birth of my first human child. I have been nesting, prepping my mind and life for the shift that comes with passing on to the next stage. But things haven't really progressed the way I thought they would. So I understand why a well meaning, happily married friend does not get why I had to celebrate a non milestone birthday with 22 people in my apartment, an apartment that I bought to save myself from answering intrusive questions about why I was single from random homeowners, strangers who thought that they could have an opinion on my life after meeting me for 30 seconds. I don't expect someone to understand the implicit grief of not having the life I imagined. No matter what I do and achieve, that part of me that longs to make 2 mugs of coffee instead of one every morning remains unfulfilled. The sadness of not being seen as successful in the traditional sense is amplified when people don't acknowledge that I am not actually resisting the change and instead reprimand me for being too independent. No one in the right frame of mind wants to be too independent. It's a trap that I very well now understand. The search for someone I like and respect is hard enough. The hoops I've jumped through to get to the beginning of my idea of companionship are insane. So when I did find stability, it was boring. It wasn't what it was supposed to be. The questions that popped up, is this what I waited and prayed and did all of that self work for? Like it's some magic wand that was going to change my life dramatically, like in the movies. As I learned to navigate the complicated and stagnant dating pool with its ever changing definitions of commitment and see how life unfolds, for now, it's 1 mug of coffee and a snout to keep me company.
That's it. The first time that Vismaya shared this with me, I know I had shivers and I had shivers again today when you read it. I feel like it sets the context for this episode so beautifully. And thank you for being willing to share that because it is so personal to you. So for everyone listening in, thank you for being here for another episode of the Kind podcast. And in today's episode, we're talking to 4 and 5 lovely people who are going to share their experience with being unmarried and above the age of 30 in India and all the pressures that come with it, right? So today we're going to try to talk about 6 themes within this topic, and we'll see what comes out from our guests. So firstly, the societal expectations, right? What does society expect from someone who's 30, the pressures of marriage and all the other prejudices that come with that expectation? Um, Also, what does a breakup from a long-term relationship mean to an individual, right? How does it affect you? How does it chip away at your personality, and what does it take to rebuild that? We also want to talk to all of them about the expectations we've started placing on partners to fill a certain checklist, right? To be a certain kind of person. What does that do to the other person? What does that do to you in the way that you approach this relationship? We also want to talk about unsaid prejudices that come with it. In our introduction calls, one of our guests mentioned how he was unable to find a house because he was unmarried, and all the assumptions that come with that. So we want to talk about those unsaid prejudices. We also want to talk about the importance of friends when you're going through all these pressures from different places. How important is the support of friends, and when they are married and unintentionally saying certain things to you, how it can sometimes hurt. And we also want to look at how media is affecting all of these people adversely, mostly. I think, I mean, it can have a positive or negative effect, but I would love to see if that has been adding pressure or maybe even relieving pressure from all of these people. But Vismaya, do you want to add a little bit about any of these things?
Yeah, I think this is one of those places where your lived experiences dictate how you're going to come at the conversation. But because it's great that we have this mix of people. There's one person who got out of a relationship, is not looking for anything particularly right now. There's another person who's just gotten into a relationship, so it's very fresh. Then there are a few who are just like, you know what, let it happen organically, and we're not going to try and force things because we know better now. So it's not right or wrong, and that's what I love about this bunch of people. So everybody has a very different experience of dating, of being in relationships, and of their expectations out of the next relationship that they are in or want to get into. So having said that, I think for me personally, this has been probably one of the more closer episodes that I could relate to. And as a 36-year-old, I do find myself in situations where I don't necessarily want to discuss my relationship status, but I'm made to. And at the same time, you also don't want to be unseen to an extent where nobody is bothered about, what is happening in your life outside of work. So it is a very delicate balance, and it's quite difficult also, given how dating as a concept works. Given that there are new terminologies, there is situationships, and there are all sorts of new jargon that have been put into the mix, which makes it difficult for somebody who is looking for something simple, long-term, consistent, and a committed kind of a relationship. How do you even get to that if there are many avenues, or as I personally put it, as distractions, right? So that would be interesting to look at, and to also see what are the various emotions that each of these people have gone through or are going through currently. um, because it's not a linear path. On days you'll feel like, I am so glad I am, by myself, I can do what I want. And there are days when you feel that, solitude is great but loneliness isn't. So those are some of the things that I'd like to see what they look at.
Do you want to introduce the people who will be sharing these gems of wisdom?
Sure. Very briefly, we have 4 people. We have Arjun, who runs a cafe in Mysore. It's called the Royce Cafe, and he's a very dear friend. Then we have Disha, who has a golden heart, and I have seen her work through the pandemic to help people. She just was able to facilitate sending out thousands and thousands of books that people donated to her, and that's how I know her. But she's a lawyer by profession. And then we have Anusha. Anusha is somebody that I got in touch with because of another mutual friend of ours, and she is in marketing. But what really draws me to her is how our POVs and the philosophies that we live our lives by are very similar. So we've had like intense conversations on Instagram about what we believe in. So that's Anusha, and she's also an avid traveler, loves traveling, loves having new experiences. So I'm always looking forward to seeing what's on her feed. And then we have Rishi. Rishi is a pet parent, and that's something that connected the two of us together. He has a cat, and he, up until recently, used to work at Cult as the creative director. And Rishi is somebody that I got introduced to through two of my really good friends, Ankita and Chetan. Ankita, who has been on our podcast, by the way, and really excited to see what they have as individual experiences through their years of dating and where they're at right now and how they view this entire culture.
Yeah, that's everyone who's going to be, and we're going to have you sharing your experiences.
Yes.
Everyone, this is Vismaya. She is the founder of the Orange Heart and also has started the Kind podcast. But five five guests on our episode today, I'm including you because I know you're going to be sharing quite a bit. Yeah, I think it's going to be a really amazing episode. And can't wait to hear what everyone has to say. And I guess we can jump into the episode now.
Let's go.
So I'd like to kickstart the episode by just bringing in a little context of how I think all of us have, the minute we turn like 22, 23, everyone's just like, oh, what are you doing? What are you working in? And like, there's that, you can see their mind kind of running on like, oh, who's a good match for this person, right? And the pressure of it kind of gets to us at some point, and it starts like kind of affecting our mental health and affecting multiple layers of our life. So I just want to kick off the session by asking each of you to just share what your current relationship status is and what you're looking for in life, whether it be in a relationship, outside of it. Just yeah.
I'm single right now. I got out of a long relationship 7 months ago. It was about a 7-year relationship that I got out of 7.5 months ago. Right now, I'm not looking for much. I want to spend some time with myself. I haven't been single in a very long time. So just figure out what I want, and I'm 31, so it's a nice time to know what I want. I'm figuring that out. Work-wise, I want to do so much more. So I'm excited to delve into that a little bit more this year.
Yeah, so I'm 33. So it's been like 10 years fast forward to what Dhriti was speaking about. Currently, I recently got into a relationship. So it's been like 4 months and it's going well. And contrary to Disha, I was single for the longest time. So I was single for 7 years. I was not on a journey of self-discovery or anything, but I was just, doing my own thing, figuring out my own stuff. And as of late, when I met this person that I'm with, it made like a lot more things clear as to what I wanted. Because initially I thought I wanted some things, but clearly when we, you know, got together, the first thing I realized, like a lot of the things that I wanted was wrong. Not particularly like wrong. I use the word loosely, but it was a very big eye opener for me, where I was able to, give a lot more things that I did not know that I had it in me. So it was the beginning of something new, especially for me. And yeah, so relationships, I think, are very mutual in a way, where like two people come together. So yeah, understanding the other person, her understanding me, and all of that. It's a process that I'm going through, and I'm quite liking it. It's exciting. Scary as well, but more excited than, scared at the moment.
So I am 32 and I have been single for the past decade. I've been a serial dater of various different kinds, matrimonial dates, dating apps. Like I've tried everything. And relationship wise, the 10 years have been really eye-opening. And although it was not intentional to be, go on a self-discovery journey, but I think that's what the situation presented, is to all of these people that I dated, looked at to get married, like, with the intention of getting married, meeting them, like all of that kind of helped me really figure out what I want and what I don't want as well. And now I'm looking to find a partner, and I'm still not actively dating because I think over the past year, dating apps have been a little disappointing and also kind of traumatizing a little bit. And but I'm gathering the courage to go out and put myself out there again.
I'm the last one. I'm Arjun, and I was 30 in 2018, and I stopped aging after that. So I've been 30 ever since. One of the reasons I stopped aging was for the same reason, that it goes all the way. It goes all the more difficult with every passing year, and I was in kind of a long relationship for almost 5 to 6 years. We broke up in 2014 around, and I've been single since. I've met a couple of interesting people, but these were short lived, and uh, and things have not been so easy after that. So even the dating scenes are not so easy, and I try to meet people. I think. I'm trying to look for something what I felt before, that emotion that I strongly felt when I was with someone. Um, I'm trying to look for something similar. I know that you can't have the exact same thing again. I do understand that, but something similar. But one of the biggest challenges has been the labeling. You have to label the relationship something as soon as you start seeing somebody, and so it's not been an easy road, and the progress has always been difficult, but I have always been clear, so I'm not very particular about that I have to be in a relationship. If I find it, it's good. If I'm not, I'm really happy to be the way I am. I'm happy to be a single.
Vismaya, do you also want to take this question, because I know you're going to be a very active part of this conversation?
Yeah, why not? Okay, let me just define this, the state that I'm in with this very simple anecdote, right? Like yesterday, Indigo sent me a message saying, "Hey Vismaya, Mysore, Nagana, would you like to go on a solo trip?" I'm like, "No, thank you. I am done with being solo. Cannot. Please don't trigger me anymore." So yeah, that's the state that I'm in. I would love to be, as I put it, in a stable, committed, institutional relationship. I think I'm at that stage where I'm very clear about what I need. And we're obviously going to touch upon this a lot later, but I think the definitions of commitment are also changing pretty dramatically and drastically. I would like commitment in the traditional sense. So that's the stage that I'm in currently. So yeah, that's me.
I just want to go off of what you were just saying, Vismaya, about like finding that commitment, but also there's this concept of there being the one, right? And like it's kind of like portrayed in media as a certain thing. I just want to know what all of your takes are on it, because I know all of you have been in at least one other relationship. And does the concept of the one actually make sense to you, or do you think it's a horrible approach to looking for a relationship? Rishi, I can see you vigorously nodding. Do you want to add? Anusha, you too. Everyone can add.
Yeah. I personally feel with 8 billion people on the planet, finding the one is very difficult because it's always like a hit or a miss. It's like 1 in a 8 billion chance. But I think when you do find it, it's amazing. Like, at least for me, speaking from personal experience. Uh, yeah. So taking like the current relationship that, I'm in as a base, it was very unexpected, right? I was just meeting people, and then when I met her, it just felt right, right? Like, uh, at the end of the day, this was someone that I wanted to see again and again. this was someone who wanted to see me again and again, which I think was a big deal. So finding that amongst like so many people, right? I think someone spoke about the dating scene, and I had been a part of it. And yeah, like in all honesty, it has not been pretty, but I think when it happens, it happens. I think it's also like a matter of time. And speaking about the one, I do believe there is the one. Uh, but yeah, I think it also matters about the right time where both of you are at in that particular journey. Um, Whatever the journey is, like be it a solo trip or be it like a couple's trip or whatever. But I think, yeah, the timing needs to be good. Both of you need to be in a similar mindset. And I think you need to have those conversations initially about what each of you are looking for and each of you want without like overwhelming the other person. Because I think at this age, we do have like a lot of experiences. We do have a lot of needs. We do have a lot of things that we don't want as well, right? And as we grow older, those things keep adding up. So I'm going to turn 33 in like a week or so, and I realized like when I was 32 to 33, I've added like a whole new bunch of things I do not want into my journal. So I think as I'm growing older, these things are adding up, and the same with the other person as well. And when we just spoke about it, right, we realized ki there's a lot of things that we have in common that we do not want. And I think that is what got us together. So yeah, that has been my experience. And speaking, so again, like the concept of the one does exist, but I think the one does find you, or you do find the one when the time is right for both of you. So yeah.
Anusha, I saw you also wanting to respond.
Yes. So this is something that I very passionately feel about. And so I was very intrigued by the concept of what the one means, right? And one of the conversations that I think I've had with my parents and was about how this concept of one for life, right? Like you marry somebody once and then they're your person for the rest of your life, is one such a flawed concept, because not everybody can live like that. Like even if there are couples who do live like that, it's because they believe that yes, this is for life, right? Like I can't get out of it, and you feel uh, maybe trapped is not the right word, but you feel like you can't leave it, right? Like that's what the concept of one creates is, oh, this is somebody for life, and I have, so that what that puts a pressure on the person finding the one as well, because you have the pressure that, oh, it's only one person, I have to get it right, and I have to, everything should be perfect, and everybody, every box should be ticked off. And and also it kind of, when you do find somebody with a little bit of flaw, and this may be coming from my personal experience, is you start to waver and think, oh, maybe this is not the one, because if it was the one, then I wouldn't feel this way. And so it kind of puts you and the other thing is that parents also don't support divorce and like all of that stuff, so you kind of get stuck in the hole that, oh, I have to get it right, I have to get it right, and I can't do it again, I can't go through this again. And that either puts one in a state of insecurity where you're like, okay, let me find somebody as soon as possible, and let me adjust and get through it however it is, or become extremely picky and judgmental and be like, okay, I have to make a perfect choice and I can't go wrong with this, right? So I feel like the concept of the one comes from mating for life. I think letting that go would be a better way of looking at finding a partner. Uh, I would like to say this is the one for now. Let's see how it goes. Like that's how I feel about the concept of the one.
I just want to kind of reiterate something that Anusha had said during our kind of our planning call, which was the search for perfection, right? And I want to ask all five of you, sorry, all five of you, what does that do to your expectation from a partner, right? What happens to the amount of like stress you're putting on what this person should be and what this person must give you, right? What does that do to your expectation from people you're looking to make your partners?
I actually do agree that there might be a person for each one of us. There has to be. I agree with what Rishi said, that if the timing is right, that one person is going to feel like your entire world. But is that person going to be your entire world for the rest of your life? Maybe not. So I completely agree with Anusha. For now, they are the one. And you work on it as hard as you can, as nice as it makes you feel, because it is going to. I think the concept of the one is a little bit daunting if you take it as a forever thing. It's impossible. Does that put pressure on someone then that you meet new now, or your expectations? Of course it does. If you're going to make them put if you're going to put them in a box and say these are the things I want and I want them forever, that person is going to go through some changes as well. We are all in our 30s. I would be so surprised if we had everything down to the T, that this is what I want, this is what I need. We're going to change in a couple of years. I hope we're going to grow as people. So it would be daunting to put one person in one box for a long time. I think I'm trying to be as open minded as I can. There are some things that are non negotiables, I guess, for everybody. But beyond that, I'm letting go of all expectations for sure. Because I thought I had the one, just the timing wasn't right. So I think it's too pressurizing to put that on one person.
And Arjun, you had also mentioned how when you meet new people now, they come into it with, because of the age now, it's like, oh, now if we meet, we're meeting for marriage, right? You
Why am
also.
I getting only the age questions? No, I
Oh,
don't
no,
want to
no,
answer the
I
age
mean, the
question.
age question.
Okay, I would like to answer all the three questions because I
Please
was
do.
really first things first. I think awareness is the curse. If you guys remember when back in school or the first year of college, we didn't have too many terms for somebody you like. You know, you saw somebody and like, I love you. I am going to marry you, and we are together not just for this life, for the next 7 lives, and you're making promises for all the lives henceforth. There's no in between. There's no like okay, this can this be attraction, can this be infatuation, is this something that we want right now, or is it just like a situation? No, you look at them and like, I love you, done. That's the only word we know about. So with that concept around, and highly influenced by Bollywood, of course, I grew up with the concept of this soulmate. All your life, Dil To Pagal is said, there's somebody born for you. You have to wait for them, and then you'll get it, and then your life is started. And then I found the one, and then it was all rainbows and butterflies, and I started playing violin in the background, and all done. The problem was when they left, and then I was like, okay, what to do now? And then I started to read things about, okay, it's not just one soulmate. There will be multiple people for you. Sometimes things don't work out. Like, what if you find a soulmate and the next day he comes or she comes under a truck or something? Your life can't be, you can't live alone for the rest of your life now. So God has definitely made multiple people for you, and you will find them eventually on different parts of life. Now, the next is there only one person? Like, at least with respect to time, I really feel it is always that. So the connection, the main thing about this is how comfortable, how compatible you are with each other, and we all grow as people. But the idea of a relationship should be to grow together. Like, you can't have, you know, unless and until you have not been honest within yourself, I don't think you will end up with somebody who will entirely change in the next 2 3 years. It is not possible that you were interested in art and you met an artist and then everything was going right, and 3 years later he or she wants to become a scuba diver or something. The chances are there, but I'm not saying that the interest will go, it will be so different. Of course there will be some changes in the way they think, in their preferences, choices, and but the idea is to grow together. And then who wants to be with somebody who's exactly like you and who's exactly growing like you? Need a fresh change too. No matter how great your relationship is, once in a while you'd be like, oh, I want to meet my friends and get drunk, please don't show up. I'm like, I want to watch a football match, or I don't know, watch Baywatch maybe, but then I don't want you around. So that space is really important, and so that way you find the one in each stage of your life, and when you are with the one, you grow with them. This is all what I believe, and I have thought of, and you grow with them. And then unless and until you're happy with that, and everything's cool and chill, unless and until they turn out to be like a sexual abuser or something, so you're fine, you're good, things will go on. And now after this, if for some for some reasons and things change. And then the third question that Dhriti was asking me about, it is going to be really difficult because you are with making yourself understand things. There will be certain baggages and there will be some pressure on the new person. And it's not, you're not doing it intentionally. Like, let's say you were in a relationship wherein your partner was short tempered or aggressive or was not in a right state of mind. And then he or she would, probably scratch their nose or do like this with their hair when they're really angry, and then post that what follows is an explosion of aggression. Now with the new person they might not be, but if they do something similar, that sticks on because you're traumatized by some things that has happened before. Now you are aware that this is not the same person, and you are also aware not to put that pressure on them. But inevitably, like it happens, your mind is so sensitive to some of the things that has deeply affected you will not be able to help yourself but not think on those same lines. So there will be some pressure on everybody who's coming new, because with every plus one will have to n plus one baggages they will have to bear. You can try your best, but that's always there.
So I want to go actually. So I used to believe in the concept of the one, not anymore, because I think every relationship takes a lot of work. Usually the concept of the one comes along with this expectation that it shouldn't take so much effort. If it has to take so much effort, is this person really the one, right? So then you start questioning the very foundation on which the relationship is based. So over a period of time, I've trained my mind to think of it as, just like how you work on your relationship with your parents, because not everything that they say might be great, not everything that you say might be taken, in the right sense by parents. Over there, we're still making it work in some sense, right? We're still trying our best to get them on the same page. They're still trying their best to understand this new age philosophies which they were not exposed to. So similarly, I feel that somebody who has a completely different upbringing and very different set of values, hopefully you have some shared values, which is the reason why you're even with that person. But when they are in a completely different scenario and you guys are coming together, there has to be some amount of growth, and that growth will take work. So I don't think I believe in the concept of the one anymore. And coming to the question on pressure, right? The one thing that I believe in is a lot of self work. So as you go through with your self work, you're also able to undo a lot of the baggage that you have developed from your previous relationships or even from your childhood, things that you've seen, picked up inadvertently, deliberately, all of those things. When you stop to question, you tend to realize that a lot of these things may be very arbitrary and irrational. So then you start reversing how you think about relationships, for instance, or even for that matter, like what Arjun was describing, the trauma dumping that happens and the baggage that you carry with yourself. Perhaps when you stop to question why that is happening and why you're reacting a certain way, you'll realize that the trigger is somewhere else and it's not this new person, right? But having said that, there are certain non-negotiables that for a fact that you need. Like as a 36-year-old, if I haven't figured out what my non-negotiables are, then probably I'm not doing enough self-work. I'm not trying to figure out what exactly I need in my relationships and my partnerships. Again, without making it seem like this person has to cater to all my needs, wants, and wishes, there are certain things that you do tend to fall back on this person for by virtue of staying together, being that one person with whom you can share an emotional bond with without any judgment, right? Like that's the only thing that you really expect from that person. Just allow me to be who I am, allow me to grow, don't judge me through my entire process. So when that is happening, there are certain non-negotiables. Now, if these non-negotiables are not met, there's no reason why one should be with another person. Over a period of time, their growth and evolution may also turn in the direction of your non-negotiables. At that point, perhaps instead of just going through with the relationship, it makes sense to stop it right there and say, hey, you knew that this was an expectation I had. If this is not something that you can meet at this point or don't see yourself meeting, then perhaps it's time to give each other a break. you will be able to find somebody who will accept you the way you are, and I should be able to find my person as well, right? And without taking names, without really getting into the details, I want to have a child. It does not matter if it's a biological child or an adopted child. I want to be a parent, I want to be a mother. But somebody that I dated strung me along for a really long period of time, saying that, you know what, I haven't made up my mind about it. I'm not closed off to the idea of having children, but I haven't made up my mind about it. So let's see where this goes. That duration of let's see where this goes was great, right? Because again, you're not talking about the most important thing. So the elephant in the room is not being discussed about at all. And you are happy spending time, you're doing whatever it takes to just keep each other happy. But I used to periodically bring it up because this was a non-negotiable for me. And as much as I'd like to avoid really tough conversations, it was important for me to bring it up. And over a period of time, I realized that this person has very deep rooted fears of being a parent. And that's not something that I could put up with or change. And you shouldn't have to change those things. Those are very fundamental in nature. So I decided that it's good for us to separate at that point in time, right? So when you know what your non-negotiables are, and when you know the other person is not really traversing in the same path as yours, it's great to call it quits and just be like, you find your person, let me find mine. It's very, very difficult, easier said than done, but a short duration of pain is much better than putting each other through a lot of trauma eventually, right? So yeah, that's where I'm at.
I'm going to use the example you were giving of, having a child to kind of segue into the kind of societal expectations that are there for us in India comes to marriage. I think, Arjun, when we spoke, you talked about, I mean, I don't remember the exact Kannada term, but you talked about how there's an expectation on the son to extend the lineage of the family. But even beyond that, I would love to hear what some of your experiences have been. Vismaya, actually, I'd love for you to go first on this, because I think this is something both of us have spoken about at length, about having a certain amount of success, but all of it being diminished just because you're unmarried, right? So I'd love for you to just start it off, and I'd love for the rest of you to add wherever you feel comfortable to.
Yeah. There is this stupid social media meme, right? Mom, look, I am the husband that I wanted to marry. And you've literally accomplished everything that you thought your husband or your partner should have. But then you're sitting here feeling very unaccomplished because there are certain things that you have to do as far as being successful in a society is concerned. And we are mere mortals. Even Trevor Noah, for that matter, is considered unsuccessful. I mean, I don't know what a man has to do or what a woman has to do to be actually considered successful. Like, he uses this term serve, like you're not serving the society if you're not married and you don't have children, right? Like you have to partner up in order to be of use to the society. So people are just like, what do you do? Like, what do you actually do? And then when you say things like, I'm living my life, I have, I run a company, I have a podcast, I take care of my four-legged child and all of those things, they're like, okay, all of that is fine, but why are you not married? And these questions, unfortunately, it's one thing to ask these questions at a wedding, but people are shameless to ask these questions at a funeral. And this happened very recently, and I'm baffled by what the priorities of people in the society are, right? And I can do anything. My poor grandmother obviously like wants to see all her grandchildren settled. So every time I tell her, look, there's this video that's come out, or look, it's the second year or the third year anniversary of my company, she'll just be like, ಅದೆಲ್ಲ ಸರಿ ಒಂದ್ ಮದ್ವೆ ಆಗ್ಬಿಟ್ರೆ ಚೆನ್ನಾಗಿರುತ್ತೆ. He just wants me to get married. So it just feels like adella sari means all of that is okay, which clearly is brushing all your other accomplishments and successes under the carpet, right? Like you're not acknowledging it at all. And it is hurtful. No matter how tough you make yourself, it is very painful to actually acknowledge that and say, maybe in some sense I am a failure, because it's not something that I'm resisting. I want those things too, but it's not happening. It's not happening for me in a way where I feel confident that this is a long-term game, right? So then you start doubting your own self and then go down an entire spiral and end up spending thousands of rupees in therapy. But yeah, I think that's the thing that Dhriti and I were talking about as far as not being married was concerned. So yeah, Arjun, I think wanted to say something, right?
Yeah, this is one thing that I hear a lot. I mean, like the first question whenever you meet somebody, and then it be it a business meeting or you meet somebody new with respect to some new prospects and with a new project that you want to do. The first question is, how old are you? And are you married? Do you have a family? Like, no, I'm not married. And the second question that follows this will be why. I'm like, I don't know. I mean, I didn't think we were here to discuss about that. So I came up with a master plan. So I have a follow-up question for people who say they're married. My first question is, are you married? And they'll be like, yes. And I'll be like, are you happy? Then they're like, sometimes. You know, so I'm like, yeah, this is what I'm trying to do. So the first question should be that, like, are you happy? So and this has been one of the challenges too, as I said, after I turned 30 and stopped aging. Whenever whenever I've met people, you know, you'd meet some people, and then you really like to know them more. You like to have one-to-one conversations. So you ask them out for a coffee, or you know, you like to take them out for dinner. And then I think there's a lot of pressure on them. They'll be like, will this lead to marriage? Only then we can take this forward. And like, this may lead to marriage if things work out, but I cannot promise you that this will lead to marriage. That's really difficult. And these things, these expectations from the society doesn't change. So even with people who are married, they are going through some phase of their own, because sometimes it's an arranged marriage, and then within the first year, people are like, where's the child? And they automatically feel that people are not happily married if they don't have a child. In some cases, it can actually be a conscious choice of both the parents that they don't want a child of their own, or sometimes they don't want children at all. I know a lot of couples who don't want children, so this can be their choice too. And then it doesn't stop there. So, and it continues. If you're talking about the society, it continues about what the child wants to study, and then what they want to choose as a profession. So we have to stop listening to them at one point. So, but I think, as you said, you know, it will take a lot of time to come up with the right answers and cross questions to ask them. You guys will figure it out too, I think.
I just want to take a stab at this, right? Is so because I've been through a really roller coaster journey with the societal expectations. So I just want to give you like a pretext. So when I was since the time I was in school, I was always a good girl, and I always wanted to make my parents proud. And I, you know, even like now I cringe about it, but you know, before I go to an exam, I would pray to God that, you know, I get marks that my parents should be proud of. Like, it was never about me, and I always wanted to be the good girl, and I did for a very long time. And then I was in fact, I was very, very much open to arranged marriage and my parents setting me up and thinking that, oh, my parents can make the best choice for me. Like, I don't doubt that. But as time progressed and I had my own growth path and did some self-work, I also started realizing that when I started saying no, that is when, and adding to what Vismaya said, like, not just the achievements of like work and how we are, who we are as a person, how kind we are, how nice we are to people, everything that you've done since childhood gets negated. And it was very traumatic. And I was in depression for a very long time because my dad thought that this is the most shameful thing that a daughter can do, is like not be married in your 30s, right? Like, I can't show my face to society. Like, how can I go attend functions, like tell them that, you know, that I have a unmarried daughter in her 30s? And this kind of shook my world, because I had, for a very long time, I thought I was doing everything right to make my parents proud and make them see that all their hard work that they were putting in was not going to waste. And then this happens, and I'm like, so one choice makes me a bad daughter, like that. And just choosing myself, and I'm not saying no, that I'm not going to get married. I'm just asking you for time. I'm just asking you for time. If that makes me a bad daughter, then maybe I am a bad daughter. And then I embrace that for a while. And the same with the society as well. Like, I think relatives, I agree with what like Vismaya said, and in fact, sometimes it's met with such pity. Like, I have a great grandfather who he literally like pampers me, and the first thing says, everything is nice, but so sad that you're unmarried, and your father does so much for you guys, and I can't believe that you're unmarried, right? So it kind of feels like everybody wants you to get married, and then at one point it feels like, do they really want me to get married, or do they want me to be happy? Like, what is happening? And then you dig deeper into that, and then I also try to look at things from their perspective for a while, coming out of my depression, doing my working on myself. And then I realized something is that this is a new world. It's kind of like how people are adopting, like how we moved on from dial-up modems to broadband, right? Like, and moving from landlines to apps on our phones where we can order food to our home. Today, when we see our parents struggle with technology, we see that, oh, we have adopted, like we've evolved, we've come forward, and they are not as adaptive as us, right? So when I look at the generation, I see where those expectations come from, because for them, it was not even a choice. You couldn't even think that you cannot be married in your 30s. Like, my mom literally tells me that she was so ashamed that she was 25 and unmarried, because all of her friends were married, and she used to fight with her mom every day, telling her that, are you guys ever even going to get me married, right? So she was very frustrated, and in fact people were shaming them and telling them that you should put a ad in the newspaper, because who's going to marry a 25-year-old person? And my mom was so ashamed that she got married at the late age of 25, and that kind of gave me the perspective that, oh, that's where the pressure comes from, is that they can't imagine a 25-year-old living her life and taking her time to find a partner. How can they even fathom a 30-year-old doing it? Like, if for them it is unbelievable, like this is gone out of control, right? So I think it, and then the peace came into me when I realized that people have their limitation. Society has its limitation. Today, there are still people who think homosexuality is a sin, and we exist in the same world where we also celebrate Pride Month and we also do Pride parades. So both of these exist. So I think, as a part of being this community of people who want better, who want a good partner, who want a successful marriage, happy marriage, is that you are a part of resistance, right? Like, you need to push back at the society. You have to go through the grind, and you have to tell people that, yeah, and sometimes you also find humor in the fact that, yeah, fine, like, look at your marriage and then tell me, why, if I should be married, right? So, or sometimes you just accept in a vulnerable moment and you say, yeah, I don't want to find a partner, like, I'm just not finding one, right? So you deal with it how you deal with it in the situation. But the peace for me comes from the fact that this is resistance. They don't know that this kind of world and this kind of situation can exist. So you kind of, I feel good about being a part of this kind of a movement. I don't know if I can call it a movement. It's like people who are self-aware, who demand better for themselves, who demand better companionship, who do not want to succumb to the societal expectations. There's always a resistance. You always need to push back, and you need to apply force sometimes. The only thing is to not take it on yourself and not absorb that pressure, and just keep pushing back, because that's where the strength comes from.
I absolutely love that. I think one aspect that Vismaya and I were like, okay, we can have these conversations, but how can we be kind to ourselves when all of this is happening? I think you've summarized it perfectly of how you put yourself first and you're seeing it from another perspective. I really love what you just said. So thank you so much for that. Does anyone else want to add to what Anusha, Arjun, and Vismaya were saying? Disha, I see an unmute.
So did Rishi. Let him go.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I saw yours first. So
No, Disha, go.
No, I was so amazed when Anusha was talking, and the fact that she got here after so much self-work with parents who were on the different end of the spectrum. I don't have a lot to say. I want to say that my parents are on the same side as me, so I've never felt that pressure. I've been so lucky to have a close family or close friends next to me who are literally on the same page as me. So I've never felt that pressure. But hearing Anusha work on it and get here is just like, it made me emotional. I love it. Thank you so much for sharing. It's so important, because I see people around me go through it, but not get to where you are. because they're just not gonna try to sit with that thought and not blame themselves. So it's so nice to hear that.
It's been a lot of therapy hours.
I bet, of course.
I also had like a few points. It may come off as a rant, but I'll go for it. So I think a lot of us spoke about, so there's societal pressure, and I think there's a very different branch to it nowadays, which is social media pressure as well, where I have seen like a lot of these. So I'm at this stage, somehow Instagram sort of gets you in a way where the stage at which you are at, right? So if you're depressed, it'll keep on showing you depressed reels, right? If you're like in love, it'll show you like top 10 things to do with your partner. And then you are under constant pressure of to do those 10 things, right? Because it has been made to seem that way. I recently saw like a post, right, where it said if you are a single child, it just said that on the first carousel. If you are a single child, you need to know this. And I clicked on it, of course, because I am a single child. And then the post spoke something about if you're a single child, you'll be a people pleaser, right? And if you're a people pleaser, you're constantly looking for validation, you're constantly looking for certain things in life, and that's why you're a people pleaser, and that comes from the fact that you're a single child. Now if you're a single child, that is not something that I could have helped. Right? And now reading about it, it just made me feel pretty bad about myself that I'm a single child, that is not something I can help. So I read about these terms like love bombing and all of these things, right, which I had no clue about. And when I read these things, I was like, yeah, I could relate to it. And I never knew this was a bad thing, right? And this is things that people thought about. So I sat my partner down and I was like, see, I read about these things and I've had many sleepless nights thinking about the fact that these are certain things that people deem as red flags or people deem as, deal breakers. Is this something that, you're annoyed with? And she's like, no, I actually love this part about you, that you take care of me, that, you do these little things for me and stuff like that. And that sort of made me think, right, there are certain things which social media does, right? And Disha just spoke about, my parents are very lenient that way. They have never pressurized me into getting married. So I've never had that sort of pressure per se. Of course, in the age gap between 28 to 30 is when I faced a little bit of it. But once I was 30, 31 is when it stopped. What I have felt has worked for me personally is that I was just being myself, right? So on the first day, there was no like, are you married? Whether do you want to get married? When she asked me, why do you want to, date? I was like, rents are too high in Bangalore. So I would like to, like, have someone to share that with. And like the lavish lifestyle that I lead, it's not sustainable for me anymore. So it's great if we can both live a lavish lifestyle. So that's me as a person. And I think me as a person being the only child, I wouldn't say I'm a people pleaser like how, social media words it, but I think I have a lot to give. And it sometimes may come across as too much, but I think if you meet the right person, they'll be understanding enough. And if you do communicate it, it sort of tends to work out. So that was, and then you have these BuzzFeed quizzes, right? You answer 10 questions and you find out whether you're compatible or not. And I think it affects like a lot of relationships in the modern era where you're a garlic and the other person is a carrot or something, and you're like garlic and carrots don't work out together. So stuff like that. So this is certainly something to think about, where you can be two different people, but at the same time you can be compatible as well. So that is something that I faced, and that is something that I think I've navigated. And apart from that, I think society has progressed just like us. So earlier there was this pressure to get married, but right now, due to after people are getting married, there's a lot of bad relationships as well, right? And when you hear about it, you're like, should I even get married? Because people are in like very bad marriages. People are unhappy in their marriages after thinking that they have married the right person. And there's so much conversation going around it, right? Where people are just not talking about it, or people are just there because they love the other person so much, and it sort of tends to affect you as a person when you're especially thinking about marriage, right? So all of these things sort of add up, but I think at the end of the day you'll have to navigate yourself through it and figure out the best way forward. What I think personally has worked for me is constantly talking to the other person, talking about your insecurities, and just being vulnerable to each other. If it sticks, it has stuck. So I'm grateful for that.
I had one thing to add, Rishi. Like, those were some incredible points, and especially with regards to, these quizzes, these matches, things like that. It gets so dicey. The other related aspect is also over therapizing our relationships. The moment you see something that you probably don't agree with, immediately you're in this rabbit hole trying to figure out who this person can be and what are possibly the reasons why this person is showing up the way they are, what is the way you can change, what is the best way to deal with this person. So period of time you're losing that essence of being yourself, so you're perhaps walking on eggshells around that person, because then you don't want to trigger them, because you've inadvertently found out what are the things that trigger them, what are the things that they're good with and things like that. So you're in some sense manipulating as well, right? Like as you go along, but that's not an act you can keep up for the rest of your life.
And I think that's what sucks, right? Because you're not that person. And then you end up seeing these things and you try to mold yourself to that person, but you're not. So you wake up every day thinking, Ki, what am I doing? So
Correct.
that's something that I would rather not do. And I think you brought up an interesting point also. There's a like theory or a methodology for everything where you're not supposed to text a girl once you get her number
Yeah.
after 3 days and stuff like that. If you text her like 5 times a day and stuff like that. So all of these things exist. It's up to you whether you choose to adhere by it or not. So yeah.
I just want to put in a PSA for anybody that's watching this podcast, right? Please get your therapy from a therapist and not from social media. Like, do not read the posts and think because it connects to you that this is who I am and this is what I do. Because and here's some revelation that I had was my therapist never speaks in therapy terms. She just speaks in normal human being language, but I have learned all the therapy terms from social media and what this means and what that means and how you can spot it early and how you can cut it. I'm like, now I'm just like, there are no red flags, there are no green flags. You can be a red flag to somebody and the same behavior can be a green flag to somebody else. So it's all situational, it's personal, it's also depends on the other person and what they are and how good of a match you are. So people should stop labeling themselves and their behaviors as red flags and green flags, and also in the other person as well. Does this work for you? Not work for you? That's it. Like, go with your gut feeling. There's no need to add all of these labels and therapy labels, especially using therapy terms in languages. I think that needs to stop. Just a PSA.
I love that. And if I may, also trying to identify people based on their MBTI personality types, and then trying to go down that rabbit hole and saying that no, this person I don't think I will be able to be compatible with. The other layer to that is also what kind of attachment style do you have? And every person can have a different attachment style with a different person depending on what they trigger. So that's another thing. And I remember after my previous breakup, when I was talking to my therapist, I was like, maybe he was an avoidant. And then she looked at me and she's like, where are you learning all of these things from? So like that self-reflection also needs to happen. Maybe you're just reading too much into the situation. Perhaps it was a lot more or a lot less than what it was meant to be. So yeah, that's a great PSA. Thank you, Anusha.
Yeah. Also horoscopes. I think people just have that, I'm an Aries. I'm like this. No, you're just an asshole. It has nothing to do with like your horoscope. So that is also something that exists. Just wanted to like put it out there.
So that's what I wanted to add to Rishi. Thank you so much, because I just remembered when you're talking about preconceived notions. I was once with, I just went out to get some food with somebody and they're like, what was your date of birth? Are you a Scorpion? I'm like, yes, I'm a Scorpion. I'm like, Scorpions are cheaters. What did I cheat? I mean, like, I don't even know how to cheat in Uno cards. I'm like, I don't know. What is this?